What is going on, fight fans? How you doing this morning? My name is Liam, and I pick fights each and every week. I'm glad that you guys are here once again. It's a fight morning, a rare Saturday morning breakdown, but your boy was out till all hours, placing some final bets at the casino, had access to some off-market numbers, couldn't say no, had to take advantage of those. So made the trip out there, came back late this morning and didn't want to interfere with my man Mike's MMA picks. So if you haven't checked that out, always check that out from MMA Oddsbreaker. Mike's MMA picks, very responsible, very educated, smart gambler, and he'll teach you a lot about what we're doing here. But with that being said, guys, this show, all my content, it's brought to you by two sponsors. PrizePicks, like you know, I always talk about it every week. It's the simplest game in all of DFS. If you're looking for more information, it's right down in the description box below. And they've got lines for the UFC today. So if you're looking to get involved, you can use my promo code Liam, and they will deposit match you 100% up to $100. So only 4 letters you need, Liam, and you're all set to go there. And it's any deposit size can really help me out. So appreciate that support. And additionally, guys, Oddsjam is now being brought on as a sponsor of the show. So as I go through, I'm going to tell you where you can get the best available prices, at least on the books that I use and the primary ones that I have access to, and whether or not you're getting some value to Pinnacle and some of the other sharp markets out there. So with that being said, guys, we're going to introduce our guest for today, my man, a friend of the show many times over. You know him, you love him, the king of the split decision. It's Timothy Troiano. How you doing, my brother?
What's up, Liam? Good morning.
Good morning, my man. It's a new time, but I love it because I'm excited. I feel like we're at the right time in the week where we have a lot of information, but there's still going to be a lot of movement today. So if you're looking to get involved in these fights right beforehand, we're going to be giving you our up-to-the-minute breakdown. We got to see the weigh-in. We've gotten to take in all the information that we could over fight week. So I feel like we're in the best position now to try and break it down for the people and give them some winning angles. What do you think?
Can't wait to do it. Let's chop it up.
My man. All right. With that being said, guys, we can run it. And we will start with the very first fight of the night. It's going to be taking place, I want to say, at the 125-pound division between Victor Altamirano and Daniel Da Silva. And Tim, if you have any bets here, I will let you lead this one off, my friend, because this is one of the ones that I ended up taking a pass on ultimately. Do you have any bets here?
Yeah, I have 2 right now, and I'm thinking about adding a third. They're all props, obviously. The Altamirano round 2 and round 3 look good to me because Da Silva just has basically one solid round, or maybe even less than that, to do what he wants to do. I think that Altamirano, the only part that scares me is that he hasn't been shown to be terribly violent in his career so far. But he does have an okay sub game, and I think he might be able to put enough volume on him in the round 2, round 3 to get him out of there. Da Silva wants to get out of there after the first 5 minutes, so I don't mind those. And I'm contemplating putting a round 1 sub on Da Silva, just because I think it's maybe plus 1,000. So I think it's maybe $25 shot on something like that is worth a stab.
I totally understand. You're playing into the win condition and trying to maximize that win equity versus risking very little. Ultimately, you can limit your exposure, but give yourself a pretty high potential upside. It's also an enjoyable way to watch a match. You give yourself that rooting interest, right? But I also think for me, what I came away with when I was watching these guys is they're both just a little herky-jerky. I felt like Victor Altamirano, he does a lot of things that you want to see. He competes in every position. He competes for 15 minutes. So I think that that's, his essential skill in this matchup. But I saw him making mistakes in almost all of the fights I watched. He gets taken down with, pretty basic, high school outside trips, just things that are, a little bit scary if you're putting money on a guy who's a favorite, especially against somebody who wants to grapple, right? I think that if Da Silva wants takedowns here in the early going, he's probably going to get them. But I also think that Altamirano just is built a little bit more to last. I did think that Da Silva showed improvements, though, in his last fight in terms of trying to slow it down a little bit, trying to be a little bit more calculated with the striking. He was throwing some teeps to the body, trying to invest in things that will slow down the opponent as well. It just didn't end up working out in that spot. So I think that, maybe we see some improvements from him. He's not, like washed or something. He's not too old to make improvements. So maybe we see that, but it's just hard to bank on a guy with bad cardio at altitude. And so for all those reasons, I just couldn't be compelled to a side here. I was a little bit interested in the under early, and I missed the boat. So I just, I'm going to let this one pass me by, because now it's like -170 on a flyweight under. No, thank you. That's not for me. Even in a spot where I think that they could both finish, it's just Altamirano. He's not all that dangerous, like you mentioned. Maybe he just gets him to gas out, and that's his path to a finish. That's certainly a good way to get a finish, but I don't know. I just didn't see a ton of damaging shots in the fights that I was watching. A lot of ducking into the clinch, a lot of, weird exchanges based on wrestling, but I didn't see all that many impactful strikes landing in the fight. So for me, this is a pretty clear pass. But for those of you who are interested, the Victor Altamirano line is -167. It appears on Pinnacle Sportsbook. That's the best available offering on the U.S. domestics. It's looking like -170s are across the board. PointsBet, FanDuel, a couple places. So if you're looking to get involved on the underdog, who has seen some action over the course of fight week, you can get involved at Caesars Sportsbook. +155 is probably the best look remaining on the board. So with that being said, guys, we can move along to the next fight here. And this is a fight that I did have a small bet, 1 unit position here, but the line kind of moved before I got a chance to track it, and, moved pretty significantly. So I didn't want to track it, after the fact. But if it goes back up, I will end up tracking it before fight time. And I'll tell you guys that I have it. I have a ticket on Jay Perrin at +130. This is almost a case where I feel a little bit concerned by the curse of the closing line value. A lot of people pursue closing line value. I do too. It's a nice indicator that the market's moving with your position. But I also think at times, it just feels like there's too many people that are siding with an underdog. There's too many voices that are all coming along. Now, the strength in that is that at least all that voicing, all that opinion is being backed by movement in the line. So it's not just, they're not respecting it at all. But I think that, there's some things to like about Arichi Lang in terms of moving up to 135, what his potential cardio improvements could look like. We didn't really get a chance to see. He just blasted Cameron Else out of there quickly, had very little resistance in that fight, but he looked physically strong and capable at 135. So I think in this spot, Perrin, he might have the wrestling and the grappling advantage. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that he's going to be able to, go to those advantageous reactive doubles he has, mix in the boxing, the blitzing combinations, and use that to set up level changes. But I think that if Perrin gets involved in an ego battle here, it could be to his detriment, because we have seen a decent amount of volume from the Arichi Lang side. And we've also seen that Arichi Lang, he can hit with a little bit of power. He buzzed Molina back a little bit in that fight, despite the fact that he was the one getting dropped all over the place. So I think that guys, when they're cutting down those extra 10 pounds, it could have a real impact on their chin. It could have a real impact on their cardio. And I think that up at 135, that's still an open question. Whenever I have more questions that I can't answer, that should push the line a little bit closer to 50-50. And for me, that's why I like the Perrin side here for just a small shot on the potential grappling upside, on the fact that people are going to be low on him coming off a loss to Mario Bautista. But I think Mario Bautista is probably like a top 22 guy in the division. I think he's a guy who could beat some fringe top 15 guys at any given point. So for me, it's not the most egregious loss. I felt like he tried to compete in that spot. It was on short notice. I'm interested to see what he could do with the full camp here. Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, I love your breakdown. I think Arichi Lang is dangerous on the feet. He's got a tremendous amount of power. Like you said, we didn't get enough on the Cameron fight to see if it's going to change like his style tremendously or his effectiveness tremendously. That being said, there's one like prop line that's kind of stuck out to me, or maybe two. Perrin points at plus 250 and Perrin by sub at plus 800. Like you said, I think there's grappling and the wrestling, unless the ego does come into play, that should be his path. And I think that Arichi Lang has showed like multiple times where he's tries to get up and he makes mistakes, or he's aggressive on the ground doing something and he slips and he just makes mistakes. So in these transitions, and I feel like a sub is going to possibly be there. So plus 800 is a good line. I was expecting kind of like plus 500 plus 600 range in that one. So I took a small stab at that. I also think the points or the split might be live in this fight, because it could be back and forth. So yeah, I'm gonna probably take a small stab on the sub, and then like ends and split and Perrin by points. So
I like it, man. And that was, that gives me some sense of relief, because that's kind of how I envision this fight going. I'm not thinking that Jay Perrin is like the next Mike Tyson and he's going to go knock this guy out or something. Like, I don't believe that. I think he's going to have to mix in the grappling here to really have an effective game. But I do think that, he is live to find that sub. It's not something that he does in every fight, but he does look for him. He does proactively grapple. He does put himself in advantageous positions with his takedowns to pass the guard. A lot of guys are content to like take people down into the full guard. A lot of times he's taking people down into side control and into dominant positions, the top half guard where he's able to pass the leg. So I think that for me opens up some potential opportunities on the other side here. This is a fight that, at current prices, not sure I'd get involved. Maybe a tiny shot to win 1 unit on Jay Perrin plus 120. But really, for me, that's pretty thin value. I thought plus 130 was like the closing mark there. I felt bad that I missed the boat, opened as high as plus 250. So there's been a huge correction here in the market. It's probably a little bit closer to 50-50, but there's some, just compelling, marketing reasons and everything on the Arichi Lang side as well. So I do know short players on both sides of this fight. And that for me was another incentive to not go heavy on my side. I was like, I'm just going to keep a very small position here. And if it goes back to plus 130, that will end up on my track sheet. But for now, it's an untracked bet, 1 unit on Jay Perrin plus 130 in the sake of integrity. But I do have a ticket on that if any frauds want to accuse me of not having one again. But with that being said, we can move on to the next fight here, which is Amir Albazi and Francisco Figueiredo. And this is a fight that I also didn't have much interest in from a betting perspective. A lot of heavy chalk on this fight. Minus 475, I think, is the prevailing line on Amir Albazi. And I can't say that I want to disagree with that. I don't know that it should be that wide, just because it's probably going to be, a somewhat competitive flyweight fight in the early going. I do think that the size advantage could pay dividends in the wrestling in the early going, but I don't think that Figueiredo is built to last in terms of the cardio. We've seen a few examples of that. And I also think that he's got an interesting nickname, the Sniper. He does like to pick his shots. He likes to like move around and find one shot at a time. Most of the time, he's not really throwing in combination, but he's also not hurting guys a lot of the time. I was pretty impressed by that transition to the knee bar. I'm not sure how much of that had to do with his opponent and also him just hitting a really slick knee bar. So it does make me think that if these guys grapple while they're dry, one of the longest layoffs on the card is on the Amir Albazi side here. I think he's been out for like 18 months. So just from a ring rust perspective, that's the only thing that gives me a little bit of pause and hesitation here at the significant chalk. But from a skill perspective, I think he should be superior on the feet. And I think that he should also be able to work his grappling. I think he should just be wise to work his grappling in the second round. You know what I mean? Just like get this guy a little bit tired on the feet. Because his grappling transitions are pretty, dynamic when he's fresh. So I just wouldn't engage him where he's really comfortable at that stage of the fight. I would wait until the second round, personally. What do you think about that, Tim?
Yeah, you know what? I made the call last night on the Lambo players. I said I think he subs him in round 2 or 3. So that's great that you said that. I think like if the sub is going to be there. I mean, I feel like the level on grappling is like higher for Albazi by a good amount. And like you said, though, I mean, round 1 when he has gas and when they're dry, maybe he can do a little bit better. I just kind of looked at the Malcolm Gordon fight and I was like, all right, they have the same opponent, and one just completely handles the grappling and the jits a lot better and just dominates the same opponent. And it just kind of like, I know I'm doing the MMA math on that and I'm not supposed to, but with grappling, it's kind of different. I mean, I think you can look at grappling and you can look at guys and be like, it's more binary where if somebody's better, they're just better. And I think you can make mistakes and things like that. And unless there's a cardio dump or something where there's like tremendous gassing happening, I think you're going to see the better grappler win a higher percentage of the time. And I think Albazi is a significantly better grappler. So the subline was at plus 420, which is our favorite number of the day. So yeah, I took a shot on that one. And I think he gets him probably out of there, like you said, sub 2, sub 3. But I just took a shot on the sub alone.
I like it, my man. And if you guys are interested in playing this fight, Oddsjam is telling me that we've got Caesars Sportsbook and PointsBet coming back at the plus 380 tag on Francisco Figueiredo. It's the best number you can get on the Underdog, Pinnacle, and Bet Rivers, 2 of the books I respect a little bit more, hanging plus 370 and plus 360 respectively. And on the opposite side here, we've got Amir Albazi, basically a market-wide minus 500. Pinnacle will give you 2 cents off at the minus 498 tag, but really not much of a difference there. Just don't play on FanDuel Sportsbook, where they're offering a minus 520 to plus 370 comeback. Blah, come on, guys. Improve your money lines. That's disgusting. But with that being said, we can move to the next fight here. We've got AJ Fletcher taking on Ange Loosa, and this is a fight where I do have a bet. And I bet on both these guys as underdogs in their last contest out. So you guys know how that went. Not well, right? I did not win any of those bets, but here I am back to the well once again. And it's because I'm not sure that AJ Fletcher deserves to be priced as, a favorite in this spot, right? I think that this would be a much more appropriate pick'em situation given where they're both at in their careers. Now, what I mean by that is I notice a lot of things that are potential, benefits on the Fletcher side. He's obviously very explosive. He can level change. He can get takedowns. He can move positions. But I also see what I would call a little bit of fat on his game. I don't mean that to be like I'm better. No, God, no. But I just mean at this level, in the UFC, I think there's things that he does that are mistakes that people can exploit in the grappling. Things that he's doing that give people outs, positions to get back up to their feet, to take his back and scrambles. Just he makes some positional mistakes, but he's dangerous, right? He's very strong. I'm sure if he grabs a hold of you, your neck, your arm, or whatever else, he could take it home with him because he's a very strong gentleman. And he's very compact. So, he's got that explosive hips. However, I think on the Ange Loosa side, you've got the much bigger fighter here with a lot of length. And in his last couple fights, he did not have that, right? At all. He was like dealing with guys that are long that could keep him at a range where he was very uncomfortable, where I think he might be able to do a little bit of that to Fletcher in this spot. Fletcher likes to pick one shot at a time or throw a couple looping shots to get inside. And I think that's the kind of thing that Ange Loosa can deal with. I think that it's going to be reliant on him defending takedowns in this spot, but I think he's going to be able to defend a sufficient number of takedowns here to tire this guy out. And again, we're talking about altitude. We're talking about ABC say always bet on cardio. And I have the guy who, in my opinion, has better proven cardio over the 15-minute distance, and he's a plus 135 underdog. And for me, that was enough to get involved. I bet AJ Fletcher as a plus 205. He went out there. He had a great first round against Semmelsberger. But then by round 2, the writing's on the wall, that he's going to start making mistakes. He's going to start being less efficient in the grappling. He's going to start, causing himself problems. And against somebody like Ange Loosa, he's a guy that's got his back against the wall. That's a dangerous individual. I think that he has fought to the level of his competition a lot so far in his career. And I think that this is an opportunity for him to take a step up, for him to, show that he belongs at this level. A lot of people from his gym believe he does. He believes he does from what I've been hearing in his interview. So for me, I just want to trust this guy one more time as an underdog here. And that's what I'm going to do. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, I think Luce is the side money line wise. I don't have any bets on it. I think, it's I might ask you this actually. Do you think this, what do you think this fight, like odds of this fight going versus like somebody finishing in this fight?
So I think it's more likely that it goes the distance based on the fact that they're both tough guys and whatever. But then I think to myself, a gasser at altitude against a guy who's throwing like 90 to 100 significant strikes potentially in this kind of opportunity, especially if he's on top. I think maybe the chance that it goes over 1.5 is strong, but the chances that it ends inside the distance is probably a little higher than people might think. I think that's fair to say.
I agree with you. So I was thinking last night when I was doing Lambo plays, and I was thinking like, man, if this fight goes, it could be close, maybe like early success on the Fletcher side in the first round. And then as the second round goes, it starts to kind of go towards the Luce's side. And the more that like, I keep thinking the same thing, like keep thinking like, this could be a very hectic pace to start wrestling and grappling wise. And if that's the case, or a bunch of unsuccessful takedowns or things like that, or just a bunch of get ups, it's like, dude, this could be really greasy for Fletcher in the third round. So I might take a shot on the Luce points at plus 300. The splits, I predicted the splits on the show, but I might actually take a shot on the round 3 for Luce as well, just for that. But if this fight is close, and if this fight does go like the first, like I predicted in the first round, kind of as a hairy round for Luce trying to defend, and Fletcher's an animal in the first round. I mean, that's what he's going to like. A lot of his fights, I mean, they were a lot of cans, but it's like he still does what he does. He still tried to do the same thing against Semmelsberger, where he tried to get him out early and often. It's like, I think that's what he's going to do here again. And I just don't really rate him beyond that, like beyond grappling. If he doesn't get that going, I just don't think that his striking is very technical and very sound. So like you said, I like the points, and I might take a stab on the round 3 for Luce, but I have no bets on this one as of right now.
Yeah, that guy he was fighting on the Contender Series didn't seem that well-versed as a striker, was really getting panicked on the feet in the early exchanges and got backed up with the punches, actually, before eating that flying knee against the fence. So, yeah, I think it would be a little bit harder to take out somebody like Angelosa, but I do think that, Dana White's talking about this fight on the If You Don't Know video, so I think they're going to get after it. I think that these are guys that he thinks of as fun, fighters that are going to bring it. So, maybe that Joe Pyfer speech gets these guys to go all out and gets them across the finish line, if you know what I'm saying. But what I can tell you is Oddsjam's telling me plus 136 on FanDuel Sportsbook is the best comeback on Angelosa. Very tight market here. You're not really seeing much of a gap. Plus 130 is like the lowest I'm seeing on Bet Rivers, plus 136, the highest I'm seeing on FanDuel. So very tight market here. And if you're looking at that other side, AJ Fletcher, minus 153 on Pinnacle Sportsbook. Then you can find minus 160s on US domestics at Caesars, as well as PointsBet. Now, with that being said, guys, we can move along to the next fight here. We've got Sean Woodson taking on Luis Saldana. And this is a fight that, I saw that the numbers at my casino were just completely nerfed on this fight. So I really didn't have the greatest opportunity to get involved. I could, bet it at one of my online accounts, but I don't know. I have a weird feeling about this fight because I haven't heard nary a Saldana take this week, right? And I did watch Saldana in person. I did watch the Bruno Souza fight at UFC Columbus. That was a really close one, huh, Tim? That was a close one. Maybe got a little bit lucky there to get across the finish line. And, Saldana really doesn't have many decisive wins at this level. He's basically been, very, very close, very narrow, within thin margins. Could be, as many wins as he have, could be losses in the UFC, in fairness. But it's also winners win. So he's finding a way to win. He's finding a way to get across the finish line. He's still a young enough guy. Maybe he's making some improvements. He is at a good gym, a gym that people love to back historically, but not really in this case. So I think that all that is interesting to me. I do think Woodson is just an overwhelming force for him in this matchup. He's going to be throwing a lot of shots. He's going to be touching him to the body. He does a lot of feinting as well. And he's a pretty long guy. I don't think it's going to be easy to land high kicks and things like that. However, he's got to be careful in the sense that Saldana will throw a ton of kicks. That's where he likes to open up in terms of his range. And I think that Woodson at times, because he's liking to do the boxing and the movement and the hands and the whatever, he will leave his body potentially open to big kicks. So I think that that's what he's really got to watch out for here. But I think that in terms of the boxing, he should class Saldana in this spot. And Woodson's just been a guy that historically I didn't want to back. So now that I feel the urge to back him, I'm nervous about it. Tim, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, money line is not playable for me on this one, but I do like the round 2, round 3 props on Woodson. Everybody's on him this week, so I don't think it's a hot take because of the Saldana, like hands on knees and end of the second round, and just like he just doesn't. Optically, it's just horrible. And I think this is a type of fight that he's not going to get away with doing that. I think that historically Woodson is not, he's not like a one punch and knock you out type of dude, but he does have very good finishing instincts if he senses that you're weak or if he senses that you're going down at all and you're not striking back. He's very, very good at that point. I think that, like you said, I think a body shot from him in this fight is going to be there. And then in round 2, round 3, I think it's plus 600, plus 900. So banking on the altitude not helping Saldana's cardio at all. I think that's those are going to be bets I'm going to have most likely. I do think Saldana in round 1 is going to be like competitive, and I think that if you are considering betting the Woodson side, just maybe live bet him after round 1. You might get a better line. If not, you don't worry about it because it was plus 350 anyways.
Absolutely, my man. And for this fight, the last thing that we could leave you with here is just the odds. And once again, pulling them up from Oddsjam here. If you have access, right now the best available comeback on Luis Saldana is on WinBet. It's plus 310, which is off market actually. Most of the domestics are hanging plus 270, plus 290 in a couple places, but plus 300 on Pinnacle. So they're not rating his chances very high either. And you can find minus 340 on Caesars Sportsbook, which is very low compared to the market. Most books hanging minus 400, minus 385, minus 375. So potential value on that Woodson money line relative to the market. However, we just agreed it's probably too wide of a money line given some of the considerations. But I do think inside the distance is a fair look on the Woodson side here. If you're looking to exploit some value, looking to see what that price is at this time.
Plus 170.
Plus 162. So really a couple good options there. If you're looking to get involved from a prop perspective, you can tail my man Tim, or if you're looking to expand your universe, get that round 1 as well. You can look at the inside the distance. You get plus money on any of those looks.
Yeah, so, I don't think that's. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility that he finishes in round 1 either. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because just the problem is like if you're exchanging at a high rate with body shots and whatever, if somebody's soft there, you can just find out quick. But that being said, we got another tricky one coming up. Jared Gordon, New York's own, stand up, taking on Leonardo Santos. And you guys know I love my jiu-jitsu guys, but I also got a rep for my Renzo Gracie boys, and this is another one here. And I'm not talking about Leo Santos. I'm talking about Jared Gordon, who gets slept on at times as a grappler. He's very good. however, was outmuscled a little bit, outworked at the end of that fight by Grant Dawson. But Grant Dawson's a little bit of a cardio problem, right? Like, he's going to keep bringing that pace. He's going to keep bringing that effort and intensity. And, he starts to slow down at times in his fights, but he's able to find second wins. He's a really gritty guy, so he pushes through that and keeps working while he's tired. And I think especially that transition to American Top Team kind of changed his perspective on that. He said, I realize I'm going to get tired, but I got to work from being tired and just get comfortable doing that. And I think he did that. And I think he was able to do that better than Gordon. But I think Gordon is able to do that better than Santos at this stage of their career. How often do we talk about MMA? It's timing. It's all about when the fight takes place. It's not just about who the fighters are. Because, and many times in their career, Leonardo Santos would be the minus 275 favorite, and Gordon would be the plus 225 underdog. But at a certain age, at a certain stage of your career, it becomes a little bit more difficult for you to keep pace for the length of time that an MMA fight's scheduled for. It's 15 minutes. That's an eternity for somebody like Leonardo Santos. We saw it in his last fight where after he's thrown 30 strikes, he's looking up at the referee like, please save me. Like, please. Like, because he realized Clay Guida's coming back. And granted, it broke my heart too, guys. I had the Leonardo Santos round 1 bet. I had the Leonardo Santos KO bet. I had the Leonardo Santos by sub bet. I had it all. I had all of them. And he fumbled the bag. And that's against Clay Guida, who has truly met very few guillotines that he didn't want to stick his head as deep as he possibly could into. So with that being said, I'm now expected to trust, that Jared is going to go out there and not get clipped at a big money line indication. And that's tough for me because he can get clipped and he has been clipped. However, I think people also got to go back and watch the fights and take in the circumstances, right? The Carlos Diego Ferreira fight, I've always told people that he gets fouled like 4 times in a row, and then the dude punches him in the back of the head like 4 times with his hand behind his back. It's like the worst situation to be in UFC history, right? Like, that's just horrible. I feel bad for him. That's like the worst spot ever. Then he got nut-shotted as well in that fight. Just horrific, right? Just like a guy on the Contender Series, right? It stinks when you lose the bet, but it stinks even worse when the guy gets punted in the nuts 30 seconds before he gets knocked out. You're like, brutal. And that's the same kind of deal that happened to Jared Gordon there. Then we look at the Neto BJJ knockout. They were swanging and banging in the pocket for ages in that fight. And then eventually he couldn't move his legs anymore. So he was just stuck in front of the guy getting banged on the head top. And eventually he went out standing against the fence. The guy never quit on himself at all in that fight. He literally fought to the bitter end when he was knocked out against the fence. So I'm not saying he's got a chin of granite. I'm just saying he does fight like a dog when he's out there. So for me, what I really liked in this fight was the under 2.5 rounds. And I took that at plus 130 in the early going this week. And for me, it was a pretty simple calculation, right? Santos, his win conditions in this fight, I believe, are in the first and second round, most likely, because I just don't think I can envision him going the full 15 minutes anymore, especially in a fight like this where Jared Gordon typically brings a high striking pace. So for me, I'm thinking to myself, why would I get cute in this fight when I know that Jared Gordon could storm back on this guy and finish him via exhaustion, where it doesn't, like, do you think Clay Guida is better than him at jiu-jitsu? No, he was exhausted. He needed to go home, and that's it. And Jared Gordon can send somebody home with a submission too. I think people forget that. This guy does know how to grapple. I think it would be wise for him to just keep working away with strikes. And honestly, he should Shane Burgos Makwana Americani this guy. He should just try and hold him down and punch him in the body, knee him in the body, as many things as he can do to dig in his cardio, and he will finish him in under 12.5 minutes, in my opinion. So for me, I think Jared Gordon's going to get the win because I think Leo is a little bit too popular an underdog this week. But I also think Leo, I'm not counting him out, man. He's so dangerous. He's got the KO power. If he wasn't so stupid, he would have submitted Clay Guida in the first round. I mean, I'm not trying to be crass. I'm just trying to be realistic. The guy has a guy who can't really defend the guillotine very well, completely rocked, and he looks at the referee and throws like the shortest punches with the side of his fist you've ever seen. instead of going for a guillotine, the guy's a jiu-jitsu champion. It's like, I can't even help this guy. So for me, I think that like he was so scared of the prospect of getting tired from pulling a guillotine that he was like, just keep punching him like this. I can't do it no more, man. I love Leo, but it's time to teach grappling classes. And Jerry Gordon, last narrative piece I'll give you here. Court McGee, he got brutally knocked out, right? And that was unfortunate, right? By my man Jeremiah Wells. Cash me a nice ticket, though. I had Jeremiah Wells inside the distance for a good position there. And then, Court McGee, he's a Utah fighter. He was on the last Utah card. I'm sure they would have loved to have him here, but unfortunately he got knocked out brutally, so they can't have him here. But who's the other guy in the UFC that preaches a similar message about overcoming addiction, about overcoming, problems in your life, about reaching out for help? And that's Jerry Gordon. And I think that, I would not be surprised if we see a, mental health campaign like they've been doing for the UFC and a lot of these shows surrounding Court McGee and Jared Gordon's story, win or lose, in this fight. I think they might talk about that on the broadcast. So that was something else that I thought about from a narrative perspective. Court McGee will be in the building. So take that for whatever it's worth. I try and consider these things from all angles. Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, I love your takes on this. I totally agree. I think I'm going to have a play on some round props for this one as well. This fight seems eerily similar to the De Silva Altamirano fight, except for the fact that Gordon has more finishing ability than Altamirano. So, and Santos has more finishing ability than De Silva. So, yeah, the crazy lines on the round one for Santos. I mean, it's like plus 9-1 for just round one, and then 18-1 on if you want to take a shot on the sub or the KO. I'm going to have to take a shot on those because I took a shot on them the last time. We're still feeling the pain from that. I know that. I feel it as well. And fuck Keith Peterson too, because everybody else in the world stops that fight.
He smelled like booze and cigarettes that night, no doubt, dude.
It's just, I love Keith Peterson in the Merab fight when he kept him going against Moraes, but I hate Keith Peterson in that fight because I think he should have stopped it. So I'm inconsistent, but I don't care. I think, like you said, I think that there's definitely a possibility that Gordon could get him out in the second or third round after Santos blows his load in the first, and hopefully cashes the bigger line for me on the KO one or the round one for Santos. But yeah, probably going to take small stabs at round one Santos, round two, round three for Gordon. If the fight goes, I will be probably out like a unit, something like that.
Hey, another way to maximize win potential and limit exposure. Nothing wrong with that. I think that he is a dog with upside this week. That's something that we're always looking for. And again, it's looking at maximizing win condition. If we don't think he's got 15 minutes to go, why are we going to look for that plus 225 when we can look for that plus 900, maybe plus 400 for the 2 rounds combined? I'm not sure what those combination props are, but just those kind of numbers for me are a lot more appealing on somebody that, for example, I felt a little dumb in retrospect because I laid a decent amount on Claudio Silva and he really just proved that he had like 7.5, 8 minutes there to work with. And then he kind of was just going to have to hold on the rest of the way. So for me, that was frustrating because we know that the judges prioritize those last 2 minutes way more than the first 3. You could dominate, take the back, do everything you want. Then the guy lands 15 punches and you might as well, it's over. You just gave it back. So for me, that's something else that I think about now from a cardiovascular perspective and backing older fighters. That's one of the things that we consistently see drop off, even from people that are, historically very good cardio fighters. So I'm just looking here for the best available lines. We got Leo Santos on the comeback at plus 240 on FanDuel Sportsbook. Guys, that's stale. So if you are a money line strict player and you're looking for just plus EV spots, that looks plus EV to me. Plus 240 on Leo Santos. You got plus 219 on Pinnacle. So big disparity between the sharp markets and Square Duel. So if you want to go take Square Duel for their paper, that is one way you could consider doing so. If you're looking to get on the Jared Gordon side, the best you can do on U.S. domestics is minus 270 at Caesars Sportsbook. Hey, shout out Caesars Sportsbook, consistently getting some of the lower lines for these U.S. domestic books, and minus 265 on Pinnacle Sportsbook. So if you guys are global players, you could find an even better price on the favorite here, Jared Gordon. And I think it's for the same reason that I mentioned. You know, if you are on the Jared Gordon side, you'd probably be looking at a fight not to go the distance, or a Gordon prop and inside the distance, a fight, Gordon to win by decision. You know, you're going to try and look for that plus money to not have to lay the chalk with a guy like Jared Gordon, which I totally understand and respect. Now, next fight up, we've got a heavyweight bout between Marcin Tybura and Alexander Romanov. I wanted to kick this one off to you, my brother. What do you think about this fight?
I think the line is just wacky. I don't understand it. Tybura is going to be the biggest grappling test, wrestling test so far for Romanov. This was my longest Lambo play yesterday that I took a shot on. Listen, I mean, it's obviously it's not like very likely to happen, but round 3 Tybura is 25-1, and then round 3 sub is 75-1 for Tybura. Like he's lasted 5 rounds with Verdum, and like he's a better submission grappler, I believe, than Romanov. I think he's better on the feet. Romanov versus Espino was a really bad look, in my opinion, on a few different fronts. First of all, he was able to be wrestled. Secondly, he gassed terribly. And then thirdly, he quit. I mean, like, no question about it, he quit. Like, that was not a shot that he should have to stop the fight on. And he was looking for a way out. So all those things, like, to me, just say it's going to be worth a shot, taking a shot on Tybura. I'll be having a small money line stab on him. And I'll take a shot on the late round props, just seeing how Romanov gassed, and you're going to have he has to grapple. I mean, like, I don't think that he has, like, he's just not good standing. So I feel like Tybura held his own with Volkov standing. I actually was on Volkov that night, and I was sweating my ass off. And he went 0 for 16 on takedowns. So he was standing the entire fight. And he stood and was like pretty much 40-60 against Volkov standing. So if this fight is standing, I think that he's got a significant edge. And I think the wrestling grappling is going to be interesting to see what happens. So if you're going to give me 3-1 on a dog that fights, and he's going to like minus a like Donkey Kong like KO in round 1, or like him getting really great position, I don't see how he wins. So how about you?
Man, I'm glad to hear you say that. We've had a lot of agreement today, my brother, and this is another one that we're going to agree on. And, when I talked about off-market lines, when I talked about, numbers I was trying to exploit, I had seen the number kind of peak up to that plus 350 tag. And so they had just opened the lines at the casino. I'm like, hey, let's see what they've got, and they were holding a plus 350 on Marcin Tybura. Yes, please. So I drove my way down there, hit that plus 350 on Marcin Tybura. I got Oddsjam up right now, plus 310, best available comeback on Marcin Tybura. And that is on Bet River Sportsbook. Most places you're looking at just under 3-1. And Pinnacle is actually holding a plus 281. So Pinnacle and WinBet are undercutting the market here on the Tybura side. You can get a minus 355 or a minus 350 comeback on those two sports books, respectively. So WinBet minus 350. If you're looking at more of the common ones, it's minus 375 and up. If you're playing on Bet Rivers, minus 420 on the Romanov side. I mean, for me, that's just a lot to ask in this spot. I think that Romanov definitely can win the fight. I think Tybura is a guy I've looked to fade in the past, and it's cost me. Tybura has surprised me on numerous occasions in the UFC, and Romanov, on the other hand, is getting smaller and smaller. I think that that's probably good for his cardio. Some people in the chat are mentioning that. I do agree. but I also think that it might be detrimental to his wrestling. Tybura is a big guy. Anybody who's ever wrestled before knows it's a lot harder wrestling guys that are a little bit bigger than you. It can be even harder wrestling somebody smaller who's faster, but I'm not sure how much faster he's going to be in this spot, maybe in the early going. But again, we just don't really have a huge sample size of him going long in fights where he's facing resistance. And I think that Marcin's going to offer him resistance, especially in the early going of this fight. And I think that if the fight plays out at distance, I've heard a lot of people thinking that, Romanov's the more dangerous guy, and maybe he is. He's a young enough guy. He's making improvements. He's going to the right camps, Tiger Muay Thai. He's doing the right training. But I also just think that Marcin Tybura, he's got 15 fights under his belt in the UFC. That's a lot of experience. That's a lot of time in the game. He's fought a lot of really credible guys, and he didn't get submitted by Fabricio Verdum. There's guys who are really, really credible heavyweight grapplers that he's been able to go with before. So for me, all that kind of bolsters his case here. He's got a lot of momentum for the first time really in his UFC run. So shout out to D Brown. But I think that this is a weird fight, and I'm happy with the closing line value there. I think that Romanov's going to be in a lot of parlays, going to be a ton of parlay liability on him. So I'm hoping that he's a buster, and that's as simple as that. So I'm always happy if I can get 60 cents on the closing line, 70 cents on Pinnacle, and just hope that, the money keeps pouring in on the Tybura side if people keep seeing what we're seeing. Next up, we've got a main card bout between Tyson Pedro and Harry Hunsucker. Real quick, guys, just going to run an ad to let you guys know a little bit more information about Oddsjam, and we will be right back to it to break down the main card for you.
Show you how you can make money sports betting, big profits, sports betting, big wins. And the way to do it is positive EV betting. Of course, I'm not promising you're going to win every single bet. But when you're finding bets with a mathematical edge, such as Steelers plus 2.5 at plus 100, when the sharpest sports books are pricing it at minus 115, you're guaranteed to make money in the long run due to the law of large numbers. Here's another one. Twins Royals. Over 4.5, minus 105 odds. You got to be on this bet. Look at this. Two sharpest sports books are pricing this minus 130, minus 123. This is a true pricing discrepancy. We're essentially finding a bet on sale. You're getting insane value at minus 105 odds, so this bet has a 3.84% profit margin. If you're actually trying to become a sharp, profitable sports bettor and make a lot of money betting on sports, you need to be finding positive EV bets, bets with an edge, positive EV bets that have a mathematical edge over the sports book, and place as many as you can. You're basically forming your own hedge fund of mathematically profitable bets.
So it's just that simple, guys. If you're interested, go to oddsjam.com. They've got a lot of free resources you can go through, check out all the odds. It's a very important tool in terms of just trying to get the best number. If you're not getting the best number on bets when you have different sports books available to you, it's just foolish because it's going to make it harder to win long term. The bookmaker has a VIG that they bake into the lines, right? So you've got to beat their VIG. In order to do that, make them compete against one another. Find the best line that's available to you and take it every time, and make them pay. If they're hanging a stupid number, if it's plus 1,100 here and plus 600 on all the sharp books, that's the kind of thing that you want to say, red blinking alert, this is a dumb price. This is a stale price that will move. If I don't bet it, somebody else is going to bet it. So that's the kind of thing that I look at in terms of how you could use it as a tool to benefit you. And if you're interested in more information, like I said, oddsjam.com. Now, guys, it's the main card, 205 pounds, Harry Hunsucker making his light heavyweight debut. And I got to say, I was bullish at first on Tyson Pedro props, right? I was thinking to myself, man, how can I get involved on this Harry Hunsucker slaughter, right? I'm thinking, let's get him by sub, let's get him by knockout. Let's get him, how do I play this? Get him by round one, right? And then I start looking. And for me, Harry Hunsucker is not a great fighter, right? I'm not going to tell you based on his tape, like this guy's elite, he's got good hands and no, He's a very raw fighter, but I don't think he should have been a heavyweight, right? You see, he's not even bigger than his opponent. He just moved down to 205. He's not really bigger than Tyson Pedro. So for me, I feel like this is a really good move for his career. And it also shows a commitment to fitness. Like, it's one thing to move down, 5-10 pounds in weight. It's another thing to move down, 30-40 pounds and cut a lot of weight. I would have to think that Harry Hunsucker is in shape for this fight for probably the first time in his career in any kind of real resemblance of shape. You see a picture of him. I said that he has abs, and somebody told me he has a dent, which I was like, you know what? Hey, it's a start, right? Like, the guy has changed his body composition in the lead up to this fight. And I was thinking to myself, well, it doesn't matter if Tyson Pedro can't knock this guy out. It matters if he can submit him. So then I look and I see Harry Hunsucker, who doesn't look like very much and who did get big brothered by Jared Vanderaa for sure. He is technically a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I have seen pictures of him coaching classes in his native Kentucky. So he is like probably the best jiu-jitsu guy around him. Not sure how much that is to say, but it's just like, I think that it might be a little bit harder than people think. And the one thing that gives me absolute pause is the fact that Tyson Pedro has fumbled the bag as a massive favorite before. This is a setup spot, right? We're all aware of that. I'm not trying to say Harry Hunsucker is a good bet. I'm just trying to say I think that I have enough reason for pause to not play Tyson Pedro here, and honestly to not play the props. They're giving you a huge plus number on the over, which makes me think it's probably going to go under. But maybe it ends in like the first couple minutes of the second round, so all the people that play fight doesn't start round 2 get scooped. I have a feeling it turns out a little bit weird like that. The last fight for him went right up to the bell. It was like 4:51, and he finished it with leg kicks. I don't really necessarily think that he's going to get it done with leg kicks against Harry Hunsucker, but I mean, what's going to stop him? He's going to have the height and reach advantage here. So, Tim, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on the People's Main Event.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's really interesting what you're saying about the round 2 lasting. That was my prediction in Lambeau Plays last night. Like, I feel like, man, a lot of people could be pissed off on the starts round 2, maybe even the over. I think the over probably doesn't hit. I think that the under is going to most likely hit. But I think that, like you're saying, like round 2 Pedro at plus 550. And then, like you said, I mean, round 2, it might be harder to get the sub, but round 2 sub is plus 2,600. Anything past round 1 for Pedro is like, okay, I might take a shot at that. Hunsucker also said that he will do anything that he can possibly do in his life to get to the second round here. So I think that's, dude, Villanueva sucks. He's terrible. And he went out to kicks. And like you said, it was 10 seconds. I had a round 1. I was dumb as hell. Bet like I think it was like minus 150 on round 1, Pedro, that fight. And I was just like, what?
Just pick winners, Tim.
Yeah, right.
Just pick winners, baby.
My asshole was puckered the whole time. I'm like, come on, what am I doing here? I must hate myself betting minus 150 props and round props. Like, so yeah, like I actually did think like when this fight came on, I'm like, oof, I did think that. I'm like, maybe round 2 this time for him, just as a hedge. So, but then yeah, round 2, I'll take a shot. I think I'm going to take a shot on the round 2 plus 550 for Pedro. Very, very, very light. And I might even take a small stab on the sub too at plus 2,600.
Now, Tim, follow me here for just 1 second down the rabbit hole, because think about it like this. Most of the most distinct memories I have of crazy fights that everybody's like, this can't go the distance. They invariably go the distance, and they're the most boring stink fest of all time. And they're, plus 900 or whatever. Like, I'm going to check right now. It's some ridiculous odds for the fight not to go the distance. So right now I'm seeing fight doesn't go the distance. It's minus 1,100 on BetOnline. It's minus 1,450 on FanDuel. Plus 770. on the fight to go the distance. So, I mean, hey, if you got a free bet or something like that, and you're not watching the event, you're going somewhere, you're busy tonight, that kind of thing, I think it's a great bet to take. And then be like, when everybody else is lighting their hair on fire and yelling and screaming on Twitter, you could be like, hey, I just cashed a 0.2 unit on this plus 770 for the nicest return of the evening. So it's just the kind of thing that spooks me. It's Thiago Santos and Johnny Walker. Like, I could give you 10 examples, but
you'll get a lot of support from MMA Twitter on that when you post that ticket for sure. 100%.
I don't have that ticket. I'm telling you guys right now. I'll tell you when I have the ticket. I'll tell you when I don't have the ticket. That's one that I could not part with my hard-earned dollars. The casino wasn't offering me the best number on that, though. They were offering me something janky, nothing in the plus sevens, or else I might have had to take the stab myself. But with that being said, guys, we can give you the money line price here. Once again, powered by Oddsjam, and it's going to be a disgusting number. I'm telling you that now. We got Tyson Pedro minus 741 on Pinnacle Sportsbook. That's the best available comeback. You're looking at plus 550s on your Harry Hunsuckers if you're looking to get involved on the money line on this fight. But if you believe in that fight not to go the distance being so wide, then why aren't you looking at these guys to win inside the distance? You can get an extra $3 on the Harry Hunsucker side up to plus 800, plus 850 in certain places. And meanwhile, on the Tyson Pedro side, you're still getting a big discount. It goes from like what, minus 800 to minus 200. I think this is overall a good spot to pass on, frankly. But if you're looking to get involved on every fight on the card, I think there's worse bets to take than an over 1.5 at plus 300 as well. I mean, it's frankly a pretty silly price, but it's probably going to cash. Bookmakers are good at their job. I've never met one with a part-time job. Now, that being said, guys, we can move along to the next fight here. And this is a fight, talk about not having interest in placing a bet, my man. Lucie Pudilova and Yanan Wu. At first I was thinking to myself, Lucie Pudilova, she's got like 10 times the Instagram followers. Like, maybe they're bringing her in as a star, whatever. And then I look at her recent record and she's losing, to other UFC washouts in regional promotions, and she's winning split decisions in the regional scene. So for me, there's not really a ton of promise, a ton to love. Does she look sharp enough on the feet? Yeah. Does she look like she might have a little bit of boxing advantage in this fight? Potentially. Do I think that it's a huge advantage? I do not. Do I think that at women's MMA without power, that having a striking advantage means a lot? No, because the judges frequently turn in scores that don't make sense to me. And on top of that, I don't trust Lucie Pudilova very much as a grappler. She has really poor grappling stats across the board, but she is the woman that's more likely to attempt submissions. I found that interesting as well. Only one of them has a submission finish in the UFC, and that's the Yanan Wu side. But that was over a girl that I don't believe ever fought, or at least never won another fight. I believe was the research I had done there on the Lauren Mueller side. So that also wasn't extremely impressive, but it's a UFC win. It's a win inside the distance. So we'll take that when we can get it. I believe these women are a combined 3-9 in the organization. So this should be thrilling main card fodder. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I can't wait to spend money on this. This is going to be, definitely.
Dude, that's actually absurd. How did they put this behind a paywall and look you in the face? That's just a kick in the nuts, is it not? What the hell's wrong with these guys?
Yeah, we're down almost a unit on this one. Just paying for this garbage. I unfortunately, all transparency here, I do have a bet on the sub for Wu at 12-1. Just strictly on a couple things. It isn't on Wu's grappling. It's on the I will bet against anybody that has been subbed by Antonina Shevchenko. I put that in a category of like bet by anybody that gets subbed by her. I will bet their opponents by sub. Just in general, I don't think that was a really good look at all. So yeah, it's nothing huge. I took like $25-30 on sub at 12-1 for Wu, but it's literally because I want to have like some type of small amount of value in this to make it interesting. I was going to take a shot on the splits, but it's too obvious.
They're on to you. They're on to you, man. They finally figured it out for one of these fights that the split decision was incoming. So I'm just looking here for the money line odds, and I'm seeing the best available on Lucie Pudilova, minus 118 on PointsBet, minus 122 on Pinnacle, minus 121 on Bet Rivers. That's about as good as you're going to do. And you're looking at a plus 106 comeback on FanDuel as well as Pinnacle Sportsbook on the Yanan Wu side. So if you're looking to get involved, those books, WinBet and BetMGM, they're hanging a very similar plus 105 tag. So if you're looking for a bet on that fight, and you want to get involved on the money lines, those are the best places to do it. I wouldn't advocate you doing so. I would advocate you passing on this fight, personally speaking. But that's just me. Now, that being said, we can move along to the next fight here on the main card. And now we're getting to the meat. We were first having to dig through, the vegetables. We had to get through some of the potatoes. It was a little bland. Had to put a little salt and pepper just to get through. But now we're into the meat of the card, and I think that this is where we get very interesting fights. Right, a lot of really sharp guys I respect on the Aldo side, and I was leaning towards the Aldo side myself at the beginning of the week. But the closer I got to the fight, the more and more concerned I got. The more I started watching back tape, the more concerned I got. The Marlon Vera fight, I think it could have played out a lot differently if Jose Aldo doesn't get a very opportunistic back take. And that was brilliant. It shows his fight IQ. It shows his heart. It shows his tenacity. It shows his clever thinking on the spot. But it also shows a change in Aldo over time, and I think that's not the first example. I've talked about it before. I kind of felt like he was trying to avoid getting knocked out in the Volkanovski fight. That's a personal opinion, but I think if you guys go back and rewatch it, maybe you'll feel the same way. He was in front of his home crowd. He was getting pieced up a little bit at distance. He was getting hit with hard shots when he was trying to exchange. So then he grabbed a hold of him, pulled him in the clinch, backed himself to the fence, and stuck around there the whole fight. And Volkanovski is a unique challenge. He's very strong. He's got a very low center of gravity, but he basically just pinned Aldo's ass to the fence for the duration of the fight. He basically couldn't move. And when he did move, he didn't move very far, and he was still able to track his hips. And that's something that's changed a little bit over time. It's something where he's gotten a little bit older. We have not seen the same amount of leg kicks from Jose Aldo. We haven't seen quite the same amount of dynamic footwork from Jose Aldo. He's become a boxer, and he's a damn good one. So in terms of the boxing, he's much better than Merab, straight up. But Merab is a marauder. He's not trying to sell you on his technical skills. He's trying to sell you on his indomitable will and his come forward aggression and his swinging of bungalows and his nonstop takedown aggression. I think a lot of people this week are mistaking what Merab's takedown attempts are for. He's not trying to control you on the ground. He's not trying to, establish dominant top positions. Maybe he will down the stretch in a fight. He's trying to pick you up, throw you down, and make you stand back up and stand back up and stand back up. Because if you guys have ever wrestled, that's freaking exhausting. It's exhausting. And Merab doesn't get tired picking people up and putting them back down. For the vast majority of his fights, he can do it at a relentless pace without getting tired, and he can keep turning up as the fight goes on. Jose Aldo, the opposite is true. He's been trying to really meter out his aggression over the course of these fights. And if he sniffs that he has you hurt, he is a relentless finisher. He is an absolute killer. So I'm not going to take anything away from him in that sense. Do I think he can knock out Merab? Yes. We just saw Merab do the chicken dance and spin all over the place and all these things. But I also think that age is a real factor, 31 to 35. And this isn't normal age. This isn't, 31 and 35. This is a guy who's been fighting professionally since he was 18 at the highest levels against a guy who more recently took up the sport and is rounding out into whatever is going to be Merab Dvalishvili's prime. It's probably not him going to be, the bet. He's not going to be Rico Verhoeven. He's not going to turn into the world's classiest kickboxer. He's not going to be Andre Galvao. He's going to be a guy who comes forward and tries to pick you up and put you down and throw big hammers. And the problem is, eventually Jose Aldo is going to get knocked out again. He's been knocked out before. He's been finished inside the distance 5 times. And this would be a categorically different loss, but it's bound to happen eventually. And Merab is the kind of contender, I think, that's going to bring a relentless, aggressive pace. So God bless Jose Aldo. I love him. He's a great fighter, but I do think he's an extremely public side this week, guys. I do. I've seen a ton of love on the Aldo side, and I like Jose Aldo as much as the next guy. It's one of the reasons I started watching this sport. I've told this story a few times this week, so I don't want to bore people with it, but just like watching Jose Aldo promos, watching his old fights, watching the WEC. The guy is an absolute legend of the game and always will be, no matter what the result of this fight is. And he could win it. And if he does, God bless him for it. He'll probably be fighting for a bantamweight world title. But this is the kind of fight that makes me feel like I got caught with a trap on Cruz, and I don't want to make the same mistake. I don't want to buy your resume when you're not the same guy anymore. And Jose Aldo, when he was at his very best, was throwing a ton of leg kicks, and he was impossible to take down, and the same hasn't been true at bantamweight. He's not throwing a ton of leg kicks, and he has been possible to take down. And if that's the case, I think Merab's probably going to get his game off. So I think it's going to be a hell of a fight, and I'm excited to see how it plays out. But Tim, what do you think, my man? King of Rio or Merab? Merab.
You know what? I think this is such a great fight. Just I'm almost don't want to bet on it because I just want to sit back and enjoy it. I don't do that often. I'm a DGen. But yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I do see a lot of people like saying the no scorecards for Aldo, and I'm like, God, you got to be careful on that. That's like, it's almost like they're thinking like that he's never been finished. Look back at the tape. It's not like, it's also not like, I think it's not that they're looking at Aldo as more that they think that Merab's just a machine and he's a decision machine. It's like, okay, true. But it's also, if he gets in position in this fight, in the third round, especially, and like you said, this fight could completely change. So I'm not going to take I was going to prop it out and be like, oh, points Merab and Aldo KO or anything like that. This is just one of those fights where it's just so both. I could see it happening. I could see Aldo KOing him. I could see Merab just completely rinse and repeating takedowns and winning a decision. And I could also see Merab finishing him late, like just gassing him out and positionally getting him and just pounding him out. Or, I don't have really any strong read on it. So I'm just not going to bet it. And I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the fight. But I think this is great matchmaking and I can't wait to watch this fight. Probably most pumped for this fight of any.
Oh man, this one is fire. I think that this easily could fit as a co-main event as well. And I'm looking right now, best available price on Dvalishvili inside the distance is plus 450. And I did take a shot at that number. I took a half unit shot at plus 450. Merab inside the distance. It's my only bet on this fight. And I feel good about the spot. Listen, 5 out of 7 losses for Jose Aldo have taken place inside the distance. He's incurred a lifetime worth of damage already in this sport, and he's an absolute legend for it. Every fight that he wins is a marvel, and we should all just be grateful that he's here all the time. But truthfully, I don't want to, rely on my love of the legend when I'm making financial decisions. And the numbers tell me Merab Dvalishvili, is starting to find finishes in the UFC potentially. And if that's the case, with his pace, with his aggression against these older fighters that might be able for him to pick off at the end of the rankings, I think that unfortunately the time may be up for Jose Aldo. So I'm rooting for the King of Rio. I'd be happy to lose this bet, but a half unit shot on a guy I think is going to bring a hellacious pace and pressure. I got to take that shot.
Did you see the round 3 prop on Merab on FanDuel is plus 2,100? I'm going to be betting that.
I did not see that. but I will be seeing it soon.
Yeah, I like that. I was just looking at that myself. So
yeah, I mean, that sounds like an absolute steal. And if you guys are looking to get involved on the money line, powered by Oddsjam, we got minus 131 on Pinnacle on Merab Dvalishvili. You can find minus 139 on PointsBet, minus 140 on WinBet. If you're looking for a Jose Aldo play, plus 125 on Caesar Sportsbooks, the best you're going to do. They're hanging the plus 125 on Jose Aldo. No other book is above plus 120. Now, we can move on to the next fight here. I made a very silly video just joking about this fight. This is the good-looking fight of the night. We've got Paulo Costa and Luke Rockhold, two future retired fighters turned models. For whatever it's worth, I think that Paulo Costa is a very public side as well this week. It seems like a lot of people really like Paulo, and I do too. If you just ask me, like, who do I think is going to win the fight? I mean, for obvious reasons, I think Paulo's going to win the fight, right? Luke Rockhold hasn't won a fight since 2017. I don't want to rehash the same things that a lot of people have told you this week, but it does bear repeating, actually, that he has not won a fight that went to decision since 2012. He has not been to decision since 2012. So Luke Rockhold, his average win is under 7.5 minutes. His average loss is under 7.5 minutes. So Tim, what do you think I did? Do you think I tried to get smart and figure out who's going to win this fight? No, because it's middleweight, it's high variance. We have seen Costa finish before. We haven't seen his ground game audited. I do think Luke Rockhold is probably one of the best grapplers he's ever fought. That being said, if Luke Rockhold gets hit on the chin by one big punch, it could be the fight. It could be all over from there. And so for me, that's a big problem. I think that this is the kind of fight where I wanted to get involved on the under early on and then not think about it ever again. So I played the under 1.5 rounds at plus 115. Thought that was a good look. It's been bet down a little bit. And the fight not to go the distance is like minus 300. And again, I just explained the average win and loss for Luke Rockhold takes place in under 1.5 rounds. I'm willing to take a shot on that. And Costa's got his share of first-round finishes. He's a guy who brings the violence from the opening bell more often than not. So for me, the age gap, the fact that both these guys have been in each other's face, talking all that mess, want to get after each other, a lot of ego involved. I think this could be a fight that ends very quickly one way or the other. But most likely Paulo Costa is going to flatline him. Timothy, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Do you still see value in the under 1.5 at minus 115?
I didn't play it for a huge bet, to be honest, when it was at plus 115. So I think that it's justifiable, but it is a little bit sketchy. Maybe what is a fight not to start round 3? I would be curious.
Hold on a second. Plus yes is no is minus 182.
Minus 182. It's dicey. I see. I just don't like the idea of laying chalk on it. I like the upside potential at the plus
no, right.
180.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. I see Costa knocking him out in first or second round, but like you said, I mean, if banana peel type shit, like if he falls and slips on a kick, like anything, like he just slips and he's on the ground with Luke, I think he's fucked at that point. So, yeah,
man, that Luke's a hammer on top. He really is.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if minus the durability, which is just like a gigantic factor, like this dude is one of the best fighters that I've seen. Like, no joke. Like, he's super, super talented in his prime. Obviously, this is a long time ago, but I think he was great. But that's a long time ago, and he doesn't have a chin anymore. So it's a totally different discussion. So I can't talk about him like one left hook can't knock him out in this situation. And I think that that's probably what's going to happen. So, yeah.
Straight up, man. And the problem is, sometimes it feels like everybody's on the same side because it's logical. But also sometimes we get into these groupthink narratives, and that was the one concern I had here, where for weeks, I've been hearing a lot of talk about Paulo Costa, but it just seems like he's the obvious side. Luke is publicly talking shit about the company. Dana is publicly talking shit about Luke. And so while Paulo Costa is going to technically be a free agent after this fight, the idea is that the UFC would like to re-sign him and keep him in valuable spots moving forward. They just moved heaven and earth to get the guy the main event with Marvin Vettori. And then now they said after the fight, he's never going back to 185. Here he is at 185, just like he wanted. And he looks better than ever in terms of his physicality. So I think all that being considered, shout out Library says Costa has big muscles, betting him for that. Straight up, nothing wrong with that. And he's going to have big muscles, that's for sure. And he's going to have younger, fresher muscles as well than Luke. Luke looks like he's big and he's jacked, but I do just have some questions about how he's going to hold up in the high octane kicking exchanges, because he's had to deal with a lot of injuries to his legs in the time off, and he had staph in his shin. He was wearing the shin sleeves. I'm not sure if those will be permitted in Utah. So just a couple of questions that I have sort of leading into the fight, because he looked a little strange in the Yanan fight for more than just the massive muscles that filled up like balloons within a couple minutes there. But guys, we are right here. We are at the main event of the evening. Thank you all for rocking with us. We are just about to 200 live viewers, and we've got a main event of epic proportions in the welterweight division. Everybody's talking about the number one pound for pound fighter, Kamaru Usman, and he is certainly right up there in that top 5 list. But I have to say, and I've been saying, so this isn't, my hot take for fight week or something. I believe that distinction does belong to Alexander the Great Volkanovski. I think he's the best fighter that I've seen in the sport doing this mixed martial arts thing. I think he's the grittiest competitor. But again, this guy Kamaru Usman, he has proven that he is a gritty competitor, right? He'll go tooth and nail with somebody like Colby Covington and have a very hard scrap there. That was impressive, but he kind of had Colby just a little bit outdone in all categories, right? Colby couldn't really get his wrestling game off. The guy's a little too strong, a little too big, a little too physical. Then on top of that, Colby's striking game, maybe he throws a little more volume. He just didn't have the same power to enforce against somebody like Usman. Usman, on the other hand, has had very nice things to say about his former opponent, Leon Edwards, coming into this fight, where he said his 1-2 is very snappy. It's very fast. It's very hard. It caught me by surprise in the first fight a few times. And we know that Leon can switch stances. We know that Leon can operate inside and outside of the clinch. We know that he could operate at distance. We know that he is a clever grappler in his own right. It's not to say he's the world's most sophisticated grappler. It's to say he has a bunch of systems that he knows like the back of his hand that he's supposed to do when he's in these situations. So when he's in the clinch, he moves guys, he pulls them, he throws the knees to the body. He does a lot of things in series. And I think that, he's going to have to mix it up here and make sure that he doesn't get rote, that he doesn't get patterned in his attacks. But I think that, he's going to have a lot to surprise Kamaru. A lot of people are talking like Kamaru is going to easily out wrestle him in this fight. And I think that is a surprising take, in the sense that when have we seen Kamaru Usman wrestling aggressively in a recent bout? Not really doing it. Right? He's been more so committed to his striking. He's been committed to finding his range. He's been committed to landing strikes on the feet and looking for knockouts. He said, the difference between me and these guys is, when I land these shots, like I knock them out. Well, I think Leon Edwards has the second fastest knockout in UFC welterweight history. Granted, he's not knocking out everybody, but I think that's because he's a very risk-averse fighter. He basically isn't the kind of guy who's going to get a title shot by, mouthing off and asking for it, right? How does he get a title shot? He has to stack 9-10 wins in a row, right? Like that's the only way guys like him get to the belt most often. And I think that this is the kind of fight where Leon Edwards has the ability to keep it competitive. This is a guy who won the first round on 2 judges' scorecards against Kamaru Usman when he had been doing MMA for 7 years. He has been doing MMA for 14 years. 14 years. So double the amount of time. We've got double the amount of experience. We've got a 10-fight unbeaten streak in terms of momentum heading into the fight. And we've got one guy focused on light heavyweight, and we've got one guy focused on welterweight gold, welterweight glory. One thing, singular focus. He doesn't give a shit about anything else. He wants to be the champion. And I think he's going to give a very good run for his money. And I think he very well might be the new welterweight champion, Leon Rocky Edwards. I think he delivers. I think he's a hell of a challenge. And I was saying at the beginning of this year, I felt like champions were about to start falling in these divisions. There's a turnover naturally in the UFC. There's a changing of the guard. And the truth is, we've seen it a number of times where older fighters, 35, 36, start to get ushered out by the fresher, younger crop of fighters. Leon Edwards was 4 years younger when he fought Kamaru the first time. Kamaru had a lifetime of wrestling experience. Now Kamaru has started to get away from his wrestling because his knees are busted. He has a broken hand that he just got surgically repaired heading into this fight. So now he's got a myriad of injuries. He's 35 years of age, 4 years older. He has a 2-inch reach advantage, but he's at a 2-inch height deficit. So it's going to cancel it out. It's going to be Leon, who is probably a little bit faster and a little bit more pop from distance. So then the question is, well, who's going to dominate kicking range? I think that's going to be Leon. Who's going to do better work in the clinch? I think the volume in the clinch will come from Kamaru. I think the damage in the clinch will come from Leon. You know, Kamaru likes to throw punches to the thigh and like hold people against the fence and stomp their feet. I'm not saying it's not effective. I'm just saying when Leon commits to a strike in the clinch, people double over, people get hurt, people get, uncomfortable. He's very good there. And he mixes it up between knees and between slashing elbows. And those are two good ways to cause damage. And if it was, banking on a guy to get hurt that's never been hurt, that would be a problem for me. But he has been hurt on a number of occasions, and he's been able to gut his way through it, grit his way through it. He's been able to really put on a good poker face when he was hurt by Gilbert Burns and these guys. But I think that somebody that can compete with him at jabbing range, like Leon will be able to do, somebody that can offer kicks and a diverse arsenal, and somebody who's not afraid to wrestle with him. I truly believe that. I don't think it's in Leon's best interest to try and wrestle with him at all moments of this fight, but I think the idea of him mixing in takedown attempts to keep Kamaru guessing and to keep him off balance is a good idea, and I do think he can challenge him there. Leon doesn't have traditional takedowns. He does a bunch of weird stuff, but he catches guys out of position in striking scenarios, and he takes them down by kicking their legs out. I would not be surprised if he hit one of those on Kamaru. So I think that this is going to be a hell of a scrap. I like the underdog, Leon Edwards. Timothy, what do you think?
So we finally go against each other here on this one. This is although I will say I do have a bet on Leon Edwards. It's very, very small. I have 3 bets on Usman. I have the round 3, round 4, round 5. Just kind of feel like he could wear on him, and in the championship rounds, I think if he connects, like it really could just take like one really, really good punch from Usman to knock him out. I think, like you said, I think that the volume and the technical striking from Edwards is going to be just much better. I don't think Usman's fought the last few fights. When we said that he hasn't grappled much, I agree. I think he fought the corpse of Masvidal in the second fight, and so I think that was kind of like he knew what he could do, and showed that. I also thought that against Burns, he wanted no action on the ground with him, so why grapple against him? And he knows him as well inside and out, so he kind of knew what he wanted to do there. His fight IQ is very, very good. And against Colby, I just think that the wrestling, I think Colby's a better offensive wrestler, and I think Usman's a better defensive wrestler. And I think that that's just like a great battle between them. And I think that there's nothing that he gains from trying to really, really wrestle Colby a lot. And I think that that's where those that's the dynamic I think in those fights, where I think this fight, this could be just a terribly like just cage push, from Usman, especially if he feels like this is not going his way on the feet. So my bets are 3, 4, 5 for Usman, and I did put a half a unit on it was two different lines. I got plus 2,500 and plus 2,000 on split decision for Leon. I do think like it's going to be hard to get a unanimous against Usman, but it's just historically taking away a title from a champion is like really hard to do unanimously. So I think 25-1, 20-1 on split is just. I think it's. I don't think he bonks him. I mean, I think a lot of people are talking about like, oh, he's KO or bust for Leon. I'm like, I totally don't agree with that. I don't think that Usman's easy to KO. Obviously, he's crazy durable. He can get bonked, but like, he's really durable. And I think that it's more a volume and kind of winning the clinch moments for Leon if he does win. I think it's a decision. I don't think it's KO.
Shout out to Library. Says my biggest bet of all time will be on Leon Edwards, hoping to win over 500,000 tonight. Shout out. I'm hoping to win a good chunk myself. And the only disagreement I would have is not that I don't think he could win a decision. I do, but I do think that more often than not, he would need to find a finish in this fight to win. And I think that, Leon has fought pretty optimally to beat a lot of his opponents, right? I think a lot of the guys that he beat, he needed to beat by decision in order to beat them, fairly durable guys. I mean, Nate Diaz, for Christ's sakes, like Conor McGregor was losing the 4th and 5th rounds, whereas Leon only loses the last exchange because he's like looking off at the clock, like already in the back celebrating. Like, I just think that it's kind of a different story, right? The problem for Leon in the past has been a lack of focus for 25 minutes. I think if there's one thing that focuses the mind considerably, it's a world title. And it's a big opportunity like that. He knows what this means for him financially. He knows what this means for his family and everything else. And I think right now the iron is very hot in terms of UK MMA. They're all behind him. They believe that he's the best guy out of England right now. I know for a long time people were talking about this guy, Darren Till, and he's been salty about that. Leon's been talking about that, where he's like, no, you guys had the wrong guy. It was always me, and I'm going to be the next world champion from the UK. I like the way he's talking. I believe him. And he says, you know what I'm coming here to do? I'm here to knock this motherfucker out. Well, hey, if you say it to me, I believe you. Plus 450 inside the distance. I have a little bit of shares of that as well. And I believe it's going to be a hell of a fight. But I think that in order for Rocky to get that title home, he's going to have to put some damage on this guy. I don't think the last couple guys he fought put as much damage on him. Obviously, Gilbert Burns did, and he was just swinging wild bungalows. I think there's going to be a more technical attack coming from Leon Edwards, and I think he can do some damage. So, yeah, I'm excited to see this fight, man. I'm excited to see it play out. Shout out to my man, Jack Attack. Great Britain. Cheers up. Huge cheers to you, my man. I think your boy's going to get it done. Let's go, Rocky. Shout out to North Ender. Just wanted to say shout out to everybody in the chat. Sharpest chat in the game. Truly appreciate all you guys. When I say the sharpest chat in the game, I'm talking about each and every one of you guys that shows up and drops knowledge here. And Men of the Library especially showing out. I want everyone to win tonight. Make Leon Edwards your biggest bet of all time. I am not quite there, but I'm thinking about it because I feel great about this bet. I got in at the plus 290 money line, plus 450 inside the distance. I think in a welterweight fight where the stakes are this high, where both guys are talking about coming out there and pursuing the finish and prioritizing the finish, I like that look. I think that there's a chance that I will see myself on an under on a fight not to go the distance. I think that one of these guys can go down. I do think a lot of people are considering this fight going the distance, but we've been seeing Usman selling out for his power punching, getting a little bit more adventurous, a little bit more willing to exchange. I think that could be to his benefit if he finds that big shot. I think it could be hugely to his detriment if he hangs his chin out there for somebody like Leon Edwards who can make you pay. And just because somebody hasn't knocked someone out in a while doesn't mean they can't knock someone out, ladies and gentlemen. This is mixed martial arts. And I think if you've watched Leon Edwards strike and you don't think he can knock somebody out, we're watching a different sport. I think he definitely can. And I think especially, when he's not fighting guys who are his age contemporaries, when he's fighting a guy who's a little bit older, who's been through a lot of wars, a lot of 5-round fights, a lot of 5-round camps, this is a guy who has been sidelined, who's been getting rest he didn't want. And now he gets his chance on a big stage in front of a crowd that I think will be favorable towards him. So let's go, Rocky. I love a good underdog story. Shout out the underdogs. They're on the mug right here. And shout out to all you guys. Whether you're riding with us or you're riding against us, want to wish you guys all the best of luck on all your bets. UFC 278. It should be a great card for all the fight fans. So I just want to say shout out to my man Tim on short notice, decides to step up and step in. And I can't thank you enough, my man. So if you could let the people know where they can find you, all the great shows you're doing. I was checking out a little bit of the Lambo plays myself last night on my way home. So my man, let the people know where they can find you.
Thanks so much, Liam, for having me, man. Love doing these shows with you, chopping it up. And yeah, I do the Lambo pod with Narco Cop MMA every Friday night. And then I do Spaces on Twitter. We do them usually Wednesdays or Thursdays.
I love it. I love it. So guys, if you're looking for Twitter content, find my man. His @ is right there at Timothy Troiano. And if you're looking for him on YouTube, it is with Narco Cop on the Lambo Plays show. So great show. They've been crushing on these Lambo Plays as well. So hopefully another great week for you guys over there. And hopefully it's a very good week on this side. So excited to get back to work. God bless each and every one of you guys. I wish you the very best of luck on these fights. And until next time, come back next week. We're going to have all the same fun again. And hopefully we're all coming back a lot richer after this card.